We've all been there. It's turn 10 of your commander game, and over the past hour, you've built up a nice board state. And then one of the people at your pod mutters the accursed words. Yeah, I'm gonna cast a board wipe. You stare helplessly as all of your defenseless creatures are sent to the graveyard, and everything you've been building up for the last hour has now become meaningless emptiness in front of you. Look, I totally get that protection spells are not exactly the most interesting card that you can play. They take up space in your deck and usually don't advance any of your game plans. But after the 4th board wipe in 3 games at my local Friday Night Magic, I was reminded of the importance of adding some protection spells to all my decks. And that's really what inspired me to make this video. I wanted to talk about some of my favorite protection spells to pick on a budget. Whether it's from board wipes or targeted effects, never again should you have to worry about your board state being reset and your plans going awry. Okay, let's just start off the list with white spells. For my first white spell, I love to hype up Restoration Magic. For a long time, it was my de facto include protection spell in all my Orzhov decks. Nowadays, I still think that it's a good card, but it's definitely a little more situational. Look, if you really want to hold up white, and 3 for a full board wipe protection, that is perfectly fine. Personally, I'm very happy to use the 1 white to save one of my permanents. Hexproof and Indestructible will basically save you from like 90% of what you will face. Oh, and if you didn't hear me properly the first time, I said permanents. It can save any permanent. I like this card a lot. Clever Concealment is another great card. Despite being a commander card, I think it's a little harder to get, which is why I don't really see it as often played. But I think this card is great to catch your opponents off guard, especially with the convoke costs. This card can also hit most lands. And even better, you can choose the number of permanents you're interested in phasing out. This card is one of the higher priced cards on this list, but I can see why it made it over the $5 mark. The last white card I have on the list is Sejiri Shelter. I think this card has many more applications than meets the eye. So at face value, this card can stop your white creatures from being targeted by a spell or effect, which is something that all the cards on this list so far have been able to do. What really makes this card shine to me are all the other situational effects that it can help with. Do you have a commander that you want to swing in with and have it be unblockable? Do you have a creature that's enchanted with something nasty? This card just does it all, right? Plus, it can be a land if you need it to be on the early turns, extremely versatile. I think this card is super underrated. Hi all, Editing Ethan here. I also wanted to give a quick honorable mention to Brave the Elements, which is similar to Sejiri Shelter. I found this card after I recorded everything, and thought it deserved a quick shout. It's 1 less mana, but you lose the flexibility of it being a land. It does hit all of your white creatures though, so it's very good if you want to make like a big swing with all your white tokens. It's super nice. Okay, so the color pie tells me that outside of white, all the other colors don't exactly have the kind of protection that white can give, but that doesn't mean there aren't good options. So for example, my favorites for blue are March of the Swirling Mists and Hide on the Ceiling. They're both somewhat similar, 1 blue X spell that can phase out or blink your creatures. Hide on the Ceiling is the most straightforward. Blink any number of creatures equal to the X cost that you paid. Does the job well enough, and probably as cheap a mana cost as you can get in blue. Cards that are versatile with how much mana you wish to put into it are always a win in my book. March of the Swirling Mists is a great example of this. If you only want to save just your commander, you can just spend enough for X to be 1. The extra ability to pitch a blue card in place of 2 mana is just crazy flexibility. And here's the great part about both of these cards, they both can target your opponent's creatures. So if you don't need these spells to save your own board, temporarily get rid of your opponent's so you can swing in for damage. This means that both of these cards can feel useful enough at any point in the game, rather than only using them to protect your creatures. Black has a plethora of when creature dies, just don't type effects that work as its protection. There are also a surprising number of indestructible effects, which can be used in a pinch to save a creature from something like a destroy board wipe. I will highlight just my favorite version of this effect in black, which is Kaya's Ghost Form. It has the downside of 1, being an enchantment that can be removed, and 2, can't be cast at instant speed. but there are very few effects that can save creatures from exiling, which gives this card a great niche that it can fill. My hidden gem for black is Illicit Masquerade. It's one of those cards where the use of the card is hidden behind a bunch of rulings. To break it down easily, if you play Illicit Masquerade in response to a board wipe, and you have no other creatures in your graveyard, you can basically bring back all but one of the creatures from your board. So here's how it works. Let's say I have 3 creatures on the board. I cast Illicit Masquerade in response to a board wipe. All 3 creatures get a mass counter on it and then die. Once they're in the graveyard, you'll have 3 triggers of Illicit Masquerade on the stack. You'll order them in such a way that Amalia's trigger will target Mother of Runes, Guide of Souls trigger will target Amalia, and then Mom's trigger will target Guide of Souls. Resolving the stack will exile Mom and bring back Guide of Souls. Then the next exile will attempt to exile Guide of Souls, but it's no longer a valid target since it's not in the graveyard anymore. Then Amalia will be brought back. Finally, the last trigger will fizzle since both the exile and the returned card are no longer valid targets. The wording of this card can really hide the impact that you can make by saving almost your entire board. The one downside I have with it is the cost. 4 mana is very expensive to hold up. Regardless, I think this card in black will 100% catch people off guard and be a very fun surprise save for your games. Okay, so remember that color pie comment I made earlier? Look, let's be real, red doesn't have much in the way of preventing board wipes. I will give a shout out to Mage's Contest for being my favorite counterspell. It probably won't protect you from a board wipe, but it will force your opponent to give up some life just to cast it. Speaking of punishing your opponents for casting a board wipe, I like the concept of Vicious Shadows. It triggers whenever any creature on the board dies. Unfortunately, it doesn't get around exiling and costs 7 mana, but if you are able to get this card down, people will be thinking twice before casting that board wipe. Moving to green, there are a plethora of single target, hexproof, and indestructible effects. I wanted to try and specifically highlight a few cards that are not Heroic Intervention in green, so let's start with Wrap in Vigor. I actually like this card a little more than I think I should. There are a lot of limitations with it. It doesn't stop exile, it doesn't stop Wrath of God specifically, but I think that generally it's okay. Most board wipes that I've seen nowadays simply just say destroy all creatures. Of course, there is always a chance that Wrap in Vigor is thwarted by like a specific board wipe, I mentioned Wrath, Damnation, but I think that is far and few in between that this card can be used pretty effectively. One of my friends recently showed me Avoid Fate. While it doesn't protect you from board wipes, the surprise counterspell in green is just fun to have. It's very good at catching people off guard, and for only 1 green mana, it's as cheap as a spell that you can get. Okay, I've already been talking a lot, so let me finish up this list with 2 colorless hitters. Cauldron of Souls is a great protection artifact that can stick around. If you have ways to move the counters around or cancel out the -1 counters, then this artifact is just free insurance after it's played. And finally, Warping Whale is a great surprise counterspell when no one expects it. Most sweepers are sorcery speed, and no one expects a counterspell when you hold up colorless mana. This spell gets some bonus points for having a few different modes to go along with it. The exiling creature effect is surprisingly useful, especially in the world that we live in, where there are a lot of 1/1 creatures that are absolutely menaces. And that's the list. I tried to mention cards that I don't see as often, and a lot of the cards on these lists also have additional uses. I mentioned at the very beginning that playing protection spells can usually feel like you're taking up a slot in your deck, so the versatility that these cards can provide hopefully will give you guys more incentive to run them. But with that said, do you have any protection spells that you like running? Let me know in the comments. I could always use more protection spells for my own arsenal, and while you are down there commenting, also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, do all the YouTube things. I love talking shop with Magic, and I hope to continue to do so on this channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.